Welcome to Trading Lounge and the Indices report, and starting with the Australian market and also starting with the monthly chart for the ASX 200. Now, this is a bearish count, and it's just as valid as a bullish count. Okay, so it's just something that we're working through, but we've looked at this before, so you're aware of it. A lot of Elliott people would have this wave C here down around the 2,700 mark here. But normally what I find is that, well, I can see that the market is working across this number here. It's pretty much the balance line. So as you would see a music sound peter out over, on a particular level, then this would be doing much the same as well here. So it's really working across this level here. So it's probably unlikely to come down as far as Elliott wave C would sort of normally look at here. This has pulled back up past the 61.8% here, so it's done everything that it should do for a B wave. Now, with our Australian banks, we are looking at them in terms of this move up through here as a 5-wave structure in terms of 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 back to here to the wave 4 of 1 lesser degree, and we'll look at that in a moment, and then the 5th wave up here. So that's as valid as well. So yeah. So on a more sort of positive note, on the weekly chart here, this is the other way to view it. So all of this trend moving up through here, having the top of a 3rd wave here and a 4th wave here, and then a larger 5th wave to the upside. So what we've been doing is we've been working obviously through this move down through here, and in the banking sector, CBA, WBC and so forth, it appears that, well, there's a strong bias for a move down here that's in 5 waves. And if that's the case, then we'd be looking for a B wave back up with the banks, which we are at the moment. And that's on track, actually, so that's positive. And then a C wave to the downside. So this Australian market here obviously has got a mix of, mining for a start, and and other sectors as well. So it doesn't always go, it's not always, hasn't been a very smooth, easy count coming down through here. So we just do the best we can. We've been using the banks as a bit of a template for that, and we'll continue to do that as well. But just on this bullish weekly count while we're here, as you can see here, we've got the GFC here. I haven't labelled all of this on this chart, but still. So this move down through here and this move up here is very much like the China market that's operating at the moment. So this is the weekly chart for China, and you can see that, well, a couple of things here. It has the identical pattern here, and it could certainly come down. It's certainly made nice tracks down through here as a part of this C wave here. But once again, this market is actually working across this level here, 10,000. So our market's on 5,000. This is on 10,000. 1 and 5 are very strong numbers. 1 is the strongest number in the market, then 5. They're both major levels, and these are the numbers that they're working with in the bigger picture. So it's possible for this market to move further down through here. Our market up at around 6,000 up here had moved down before this market had moved down. And as this market's been moving down really strongly here, our banks have still been moving up. So there's not a great relationship on a day-to-day basis with these two markets, but we'll continue to monitor this. But let's go back to the Australian market. I just really wanted to point out those, in the bigger picture, those two markets are pretty much doing the same thing, and they're working with their own numbers as such here. So while we're here, and before I go on the intraday thing here, I think that we'll go and have a look at the Commonwealth Bank in the bigger picture. Okay, so just to give us a bit of an idea. So This is the GFC here, and you can see that it's in a nice clean three-wave structure here. So an ABC for wave 4 here. And then we're looking on the ASX, we're looking at this as an A wave, a B wave, and a C wave, or we can view it as a 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the ASX 200 coming back towards 5,000, and then a fifth wave up here. And the American markets are like this too, in their own way, and so are the European markets as such. But here we can see a couple of very important points here is that the top of this third wave here on the ASX 200, it never made new highs like it has with the banks here. Okay, so what that means is that it's a very clean, clear 5-wave structure that we're following up here. Okay, and the fourth wave here should be more sideways and more complicated than this simple wave 2 here as an A wave, a B wave, and a C wave here. So yeah, this being simple, this should be more complex here. Anyway, I've just labeled this as a simple A wave here, B wave here, and a C wave here. And this market is moving nicely within all of this and moving into the B wave here, which will be up around the $90 mark there. So let's just have a look at, let me just double check here. We'll just go to the daily first. Just got to remember what charts I've done, but yeah, so from wave 3 here, 5 of 5, we were looking at this. I mean, this has moved down quite fast, hasn't it? And even if you don't count Elliott, you can see that this strong third wave in the middle here, fourth wave being complicated, and a fifth wave here. So we're looking for the 61.8 retracement level, which is basically back here. We're looking at an A wave and a B wave and a C wave here. And, you know, look, maybe there's an A and a B and a C all wrapped up in here. I'm not 100% sure about that, but the way I was going to handle that situation, if I was wrong, then if 90 became the tested support, then we could look higher for this market to go up. If we have a look on the 2-hour chart on this B wave moving up here, so this B wave moving here, what we have here from the low here, we actually do have a nice 5-wave sequence up here. And one of the interesting things here is that if I go to the 15-minute chart here, the particular pattern here with this sort of, I should have labeled it, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all the way up here for the fifth wave. So we're seeing extensions in the fifth wave, and we're seeing that behavior in smaller sub-waves within this structure moving up here. But before I go to the 15-minute chart, we're essentially looking for an A wave, a B wave, and a C wave here that should be in 5 waves. So far, we've got wave 1 here, wave 2 here, and we're in the third wave here, okay? Then there'll be a fourth and a fifth. So we're looking up around here, perhaps covering this gap here. CBA likes to cover its gaps, even though it looks like a bit of Swiss cheese anyway, but it doesn't seem to forget them too much. So on the 15-minute chart here, and remember that we're using this as a template here for the ASX. That's why we're working with it, because it's just cleaner. So from the low here, can't bring any more data into it. I could if I adjust a few things, but basically the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4, and then an extension in the fifth wave here. So I mean, that sort of behavior there is a bit like this market moving up here. We can see we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then we've got the extension, the fifth wave. So this first wave here tends to create the fingerprint for the rest of the structure as it moves up. So anyway, we've got wave 1, we've got wave A and wave B here, and we're looking at wave C to the upside. So we've still got a fair way to go, really, when we look at all of this. So we would be looking at this in terms of up for wave 1, back for wave 2, and this is quite a nice little wave structure in here that we can have a look in a moment, but essentially we should be looking at something like, something like this here as the C wave in 5 waves here, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here, and then we'll see what occurs at the 90 after that. If it becomes the support after this particular structure, then we've got ourselves a bull market, but we'll be cautious, and we'll have 2 counts on the table, and we'll work through the properties of both of them there. Now, this little move up through here, while we're here, we can just have a quick squizzy at this. So let's just bring this in here. You can see that we've got wave 1 and 2 here. So there's a little bit of a third wave in here, fourth and a fifth wave probably here. So we can expect this market to, well, just get my drawing tool here. So we've got 1 and 2 here. We've got the third here. We've got the fourth here. We'll have a fifth wave here. Then we'll have an ABC correction here. And then we'll go further up from that point there. That's pretty much the tracking of that. So 86.50 here would be a nice number for this, to find support on through here. It's a 65 number, 8650, so it's got a 65 in the middle. A bit weird, I know, but that's who I am, I guess. So anyway, that's a number to watch out for there. So that said, now we've got a bit of an understanding about that. We can come back to the ASX 200 here, and we can move in a little bit closer here onto perhaps the 4 hours. Got to remember what I've done here. Okay, so this whole count for this particular market here is it's not an easy count, okay? It's a little bit sort of complicated, but we're staying with it. Now, like the banks, this move up here, it can be counted quite nicely as 5 waves, okay? And then we're looking for a movement back. It gapped and dropped out of, fell out of bed a bit and dropped a bit lower, but it stayed intact. So now we've either got a situation here where we've got an A wave here, then an A and a B, and 5 waves for the C wave here, for wave B here, and then up for wave C here, or we've got up here for the A wave, back here for the B wave, and then because this looks like 3 waves in here rather than 5 waves in here, so I'm a bit concerned about that. This move down here so far is only in 3 waves as well, so I was thinking that it's either going to move straight up from here, or we're going to have this little 5th wave to come back into play here. I'm being positive and looking to the upside because we are developing support on 5.5. The Greece thing as well is still not resolved. Obama has moved into the negotiations as well as a bit of an ally for Greece. So who knows? Still expecting that sort of sharp move to the upside. Ever hopeful. So we'll see what occurs there. But I have to stay with all the markets, be it the US markets, the Australian markets, and the European markets. As tempting as it is to look at and start looking at all the bearish counts and trading it short, I don't want to do that because I feel like I'll get trapped and we'll see a move to the upside. So I know that it's a tricky emotional sort of thing. Should we be long? Should we be short? Well, I don't think we need to be anything really. I think we just need to work through it until we've actually got enough confidence in what we're actually looking at. But I am toying with the lows because I haven't actually seen a breakdown in the markets and creating a bearish patterns to the downside. It's not there yet, if at all. So even though the markets have slipped lower on these in a lot of cases, I think a low is becoming quite close in play. So so with this market here, we can just go to the 15-minute chart here, and so one of the things here is that I can count 5 waves up here in this instance here. Okay, so we're looking for a 50-60% retracement level here. This move down through here, to me it looks like it's in 3 waves here. I haven't really pulled it all apart, but basically this leg is different from this leg, isn't it? So it's like that's one leg, this is another leg. So if it was going to be 5 waves down here, and still be bullish landing on this line here, even taking this low out here, it can still be, we can still get a move down here and still be bullish and then move up from there. So we're going to just have to be really quite sort of careful. I mean, this particular move that's moving up here, you would also need to expect that to play out in some sort of retest of 5.5 here. Perhaps could move a little bit higher here, but it does appear that it is becoming an impulse wave there. I'll just move in and try and get a better understanding of it here just for a moment. I mean, it's quite impulsive, whichever way you look at it. It doesn't appear to be a corrective pattern here as such. So just... I mean, there's going to be some sort of little correction soon, because with all trends, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and then there's an ending process, and the ending process tends to creep along a little bit. So we can expect some sort of movement back in here. One of the things that you could look at, though, is that we've got group 1 here, so 30, 10, and obviously 5.5 here is the minor trading level. So tested support on top of 30 here. If you get tested support on here, then you'd be moving. If this it can trade above here, but if it can't find tested support here as such, like here, if that's the case there, then you'll move to 5.5 from that point, and you'll have a correction at that point. But otherwise, expect it to sort of struggle on here a little bit. Okay, to the US markets. Now, one of the first things that I wanted to look at here, and we've looked at this before, and this chart is a little bit old and I just haven't updated it, but this is the Dow Jones Transports. And with the Dow Jones Transports, there was 2 types of corrections in the US markets. One of the corrections was like this, where the market's actually correcting back down here. This is a daily chart. So it's, going back to January here and a bit on last year. But the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, they had corrective moves, but instead of coming down here, their daily charts were sort of corrective going up this way. So they're like running correction. So there was 2 different types of correction. So I've kept my eye on this one here, and we have looked at it before, but I just want to point out now that this market touched on 8,000 last night. So we can expect this market to have a bounce here. Now, with this particular move here, it's really the bounce that I've seen, the arrival at 8,000. I still think it's the 3rd wave here. So there's possibly a 4th and still a 5th to go. I'm not quite sure about that. I'll do my homework on that and get back to you. But I just wanted to keep you in the loop that all of this correction back to 8,000 is at 8,000 now, and it could be completed, but I just need to work out if there's another little wave in here. So I'll go back and do my homework and I'll get back to you on that. But just to keep you updated, so it has done its job of getting back to this particular number here, and it can move off from this number here. So that means that even the European markets, they're in, the DAX and the AEX and the FTSE and all those, we're looking at those as wave 4s here. So it's nice to see the Dow Jones Transports sort of in the final either completed or the final stages of this wave 4 here. So that really helps me a lot, thinking, well, okay, some of these other bigger markets are ready to rock and roll now. So I think that's a good thing. So with that in mind, we can look at the US market, starting with the S&P 500 here, and start to consider even as sort of bearish as they are, it's possible that they can have lows in place now. Now, if these lows got taken out, if in this case here, for me, this market is basically working across the 2100 here, and yes, it's trading under it, so it's in a negative bias. But realistically, it's still, well, a couple of points here. First of all, that the indices have left gaps up here. Okay, so it's unlikely that they're going to leave them like that. They're going to cover them at some point in the futures market at least. So that will reflect back into the cash and the other markets as well. So, if they had been covered, then I probably would have been in more of a bearish picture. But I feel that they're going to be covered. So we're going to be going up at some stage. So like I mentioned with the Dow Jones Transports, that low is here and that can be completed, or we could have one more move up and then one more low here, and then we move up again from that point there. So I'm not quite sure about that, but what we're going to work with in terms of any movements to the upside are just price points, and in this particular case here, we would want group to be positive, because to be positive, we want Group 2 to become the support. And in Group 2, we would want the 2072 to become the support. That would be the first step to any move to the upside in that case. So looking at this on 15-minute chart here, not that it's much different here. I'm just going to go to the 5-minute chart, because this sharp move down here realistically can fail at this point here. So let's just go to a 5-minute chart here and have a little closer look at this situation here. So this move down through here, look, it may be bearish. It looks quite sort of bearish in its own right. This particular move up here has moved up to the 50-60% retracement level here, and that's fine. And if it just moves straight up from there, that would be bullish signal for sure. But otherwise, what we should expect here is we should expect some move back to the 50-60% retracement level at this point here. So what we could say that we will stay bullish with this particular market here and expect it to pull back here. But if it comes and breaks, well, if it starts to break, below the lower end of this box here, or starts to develop, well, especially if it develops the 50, the midpoint here as a retested resistance, then we'll be looking at a move down into the 2000 at that point there. So let's just toy with this. Let's see if the Greece thing gets resolved from a little bit of help from their friends, and so that's sort of where we are. And if we look at the DJI is just exactly the same as well. So we'll just go to the DAX here. And with the DAX, as you know, well, first of all, that it's under a medium level here, 11,500. So to me, that's in bearish mode. But in Elliott terms, we're looking at this as a corrective pattern across this particular level. And we've thought we've had lows in here before. We've just been working through it, and wave fours are a bit like that. They're just a little bit annoying, really, in a sense. So it has been a bit of a testing time through here. And yes, the market can be pulled down to the 10,000 here. But just before we go down there, I just really need to allow this last 5-wave sequence to play out. And that's from the top here down to this low here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we've got 5 waves in this last sequence as well. There can be one more little low here from this 4th wave in here, but it's not such a big deal. But I do need to allow this to play out to see if it can make a move back up here. At some point we'll have to let it go, and that point will be when it becomes very obvious that the market's going to be pulled down to this number here, because if it gets pulled down to this number, then it's going to be pulled down even lower from that point. Okay, so it has rejected the 11,500 here. I understand that, and we would have turned bullish if we had a really nice support on the 11,500. And that's the beautiful thing about numbers, and understanding them. And in this case, the 11,500 as the medium level. So it has rejected it, but in Elliott terms, we just have to give it, we have to allow this sequence to play out here. And also too, the other thing that we need to be mindful of too is that this is 5 waves down here. So we may just come back up, 61.8% and then move down again. But as I mentioned before, we've got gaps in the market here, and I wouldn't imagine it's just going to leave those gaps open there on the futures market. Okay, so on this one here, on the DAX, we can move into, we've been working on the 30-minute chart here a little bit, but what I was sort of looking at here is this wave 4 being here as an A wave to here, an A and a B and a C for the B wave here, and then the C wave up through to here for this wave here. My problem is that from this structure moving down through here, also like the other markets as well, is that it doesn't count as 5 waves down here. It counts as 3 waves down, as this move, and this move here. But at the same time, this move up here, if it was a wave 4, it's moved into the price territory of wave 1 here. So we've got overlapping wave structures. So somewhere in there, that 5th wave must be in there. I just can't, 5 waves in here, I just can't see it. Maybe it's from this point here down for 1 and back for 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. I'm not quite sure. That's why I'm sort of thinking that, we could have one more low in play here. But the 65 number here, which is 10,650, subtle, but the 65 number again, it will carry some weight there. Anyway, this market from wave 4 up here, I can count 5 waves down here for 1, back for 2. Obviously a 3rd wave in here in terms of gapping, and then a 4th wave either to here or to here. I'm not sure, but then we've got a 5th wave here. So we're close. So we could have a low in place here. So let's just hang in there a little bit further with all of this. Let's just have a look at this, how this little move to the upside is actually traveling on the 1 minute chart here. So this move that's moving up here now is it's a bit lazy here, but it's got a 5 wave structure here. So it's got a bit here. It's still too early to tell if it's corrective or an impulse wave, but as it stands at the moment, it has impulse features. It's not displaying any corrective patterns at this stage in terms of corrective rally patterns. It could, but it's not as yet. We don't have any overlapping wave structures there. And this would be also the same for the AEX as well. So I'm looking at, just in a bit of a nutshell, looking at 5 waves moving down through here. So once again, it was also difficult to, we can get the 5 waves here and even 5 waves from the 4th wave here. But this 5th wave here doesn't really count as 5 waves here. So once again, I was in the, pondering, are we going to get this one more little low in here for the 5th wave of this 4th wave here, or can we just go, straight up from here? So look, it is toying with lows and can be, tricky. And also too that perhaps the talks in Greece will help us with the first impulse wave up here. So this particular market here, in terms of balance points to the upside, that's the 61.8%. So we really need to get support. We need to see the market trade above 480 to actually cement in that we will be going higher from that point. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. So that's what we just have to sort of wait for. Alrighty. Just tricky times, that's all. Okay, cheers.